Welcome to the Court of History. I'm Sean Wilentz, Princeton University historian, with my compadre, Sidney Blumenthal, historian, journalist, public figure. And we're going to talk today about a particular piece that Sid just published, actually, in The Guardian, about what's going on with the conservatives and Trump, the falling apart of what it seemed like a very powerful alliance. The fact that Donald Trump is actually saying devastatingly terrible things about Leonard Leo. This is something we could not have predicted a little while ago. But it goes back to other problems that Trump is facing, right, Sid? I mean, Trump is facing what you wrote about earlier, actually, which is the whirlwind of his economic policies, the whirlwind of his tariffs. And this came about in particular, with a court, an international court that many Americans have not heard of. I didn't know really what it was, has decided or ruled that his tariffs are illegal. Why don't we start with that? Because it's from there that we get to talking about the question of this falling apart within the conservative Trumpian ranks. So why don't you say a little bit about the background to all of this in terms of Trump's tariffs and what the ruling was and why the conservatives are so angry?
Yeah, well, let's start with the court, then we'll get to the history on the court of history.
Yeah, right.
So this is a court called the Court of International Trade. And like the Supreme Court, it has 9 members, and they also have lifetime appointments. But unlike federal courts, the district courts and so on, and the Supreme Court, this is a specialty court. And these people are experts in international trade. It requires a lot of knowledge. And on May 28th, they issued a decision ruling that Trump's tariffs, which are the centerpiece of his foreign policy, his economic policy, his political policy, his effort to dominate the world and reorder it according to his whims, exceeds his constitutional authority. And I'm being euphemistic here. They said he has no constitutional authority either for his worldwide retaliatory tariffs or for what's called his trafficking tariffs against Mexico and Canada. Remember, he wants to make Canada the 51st state.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to make Mexico a state, but he wants to make Canada a state.
And white people, it's okay.
Friendly neighbor to the north is not friendly anymore. So he has declared a trafficking tariff on them, Canada and Mexico, in light of a national security threat because there's fentanyl importation. And the Court of International Trade ruled no, regardless of whether there's a crisis, which they don't believe there is, he doesn't have the authority to do any of it.
Even if there were a crisis, he can't do this. That's right.
He has assumed essentially unconstitutional powers. And this has created an enormous black hole. He immediately appealed, and the Federal Appeal Court stayed the decision before it rules, and then Trump may bring it up to the Supreme Court. And all of this has created an explosion politically and economically, because who opposes the tariffs and who was in part behind the opposition to the tariffs? None other than the leading Illuminati of the Federalist Society and Leonard Leo, the Godfather, a kind of right-wing octopus with billions of dollars to dispense, to control.
It's like Frank Norris. It's the tycoon, right? Yes.
Yeah, we're back to the Gilded Age. And he's used his funds to create a vast organization to stock the judiciary with reliable conservative judges and to run political campaigns, and also has been deeply, intimately involved in the money that has gone to Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito for personal purposes.
So do you think
the donor?
Yeah, but is Trump feeling? Well, first of all, just to point out, the court didn't just reject Trump's tariffs; they repudiated them. I mean, it was an extraordinarily harsh and clear cut decision. This was no messing around, which means that although the federal appeals court did stay it, there's a precedent here for a very very harsh decision, and one, in fact, that many of the people that Trump had counted upon as his allies, they will support this decision, right?
Well, not only will they support, so there's a lot to say about this. So uh, Trump went crazy when the trade court issued its decision, and he attacked Leonard Leo by name. So this is one part of it. Leonard Leo is the Federalist Society co-chairman. He's a right-wing powerhouse. And Trump's description of what happened was actually a revelation of how Leo has pulled the strings in the takeover of the federal judiciary. And Trump explained way too much. And to me, it sounded like either Henry Adams' novel Democracy, where the young woman comes to Washington in the Gilded Age and is innocent,
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't
disillusioned,
know.
or maybe it's Theodore Dreiser and Sister
Right.
Carrie comes to the
Okay.
big city and is taken advantage of, and
Right.
and the what Trump tweeted was hilarious in his faux naivete, and he said, "I was new to Washington." Those are classically hilarious lines, and it was suggested, I don't know who suggested it, that I use the Federalist Society as a recommending source on judges. I did so openly and freely, but then realized that they were under the thumb of a real sleazebag named Leonard Leo, a bad person who, in his own way, probably hates America and obviously has his own separate ambitions. Well, we did a whole podcast on Leonard Leo's ambitions in the Federalist Society and about originalism, and wrote a piece in Rolling Stone, and people can read it on the Court of History. But this false naivete on Trump's part, when he well knows, as I wrote, that this was the way in which he made a political armistice with the Koch political operation,
Right.
which had been critical of him, and then ceased once he agreed to deal with Leonard Leo and named the selections for judgeships on Leo's list. And he got the Koch brothers on his side. So
Yeah.
um,
So that was the
Trump
deal
is
that was
not
made.
so honest here. But I
You know,
love the
Trump is admitting
idea.
it. It's so funny. He's so angry that he's admitting basically what everybody had been saying all along, but he, didn't want people to know. And it happens when you get in this situation, right?
Well, one of the funniest lines Trump has ever uttered was in his attack on Leonard Leo, where he says, backroom hustlers must not be allowed to destroy our nation.
Right. Yeah, right. That's not to projection. That takes one to know one or something. But look,
But as
but
I
this
wrote,
whole,
and let me just say, he's the victim of a con. He's not the con.
that's
He
right,
is.
exactly, exactly.
He seeks sympathy as Donald Trump.
Right, right, right. So it's been the tables have turned, and Leonard Leo is the true nasty person. But look, it's not just the reaction from the Federal Society people or the Federal Society as an institution or Leonard Leo. Some of the most distinguished, now this goes back a ways, but some of the most distinguished conservative jurists, I would even say right wing jurists, not just conservatives, but right
Yeah.
wing jurists, have turned on Trump over precisely this issue. We saw Harvey Wilkerson earlier on another issue, separate himself dramatically from the Trump administration. But now we're finding people like Michael McConnell. I mean, these are people that I respect them enormously. They're intellectually quite imposing, but they're very, very conservative, if not right wing. And they are breaking with the administration over this, right?
Well, think about this: the amicus brief, which laid out all the arguments filed before the Court of International Trade that court adopted, was filed by some of the most important conservative legal people in the country, including, as you say, Michael McConnell is a former federal judge. He's at Stanford, law professor.
Very,
He's
very,
actually
impressive.
one of the key people who advocates for the religious right. Then you had Steve Calabrese, who's
Founder of the Federalist Society.
he's a founder of the Federalist Society. He's a co-chairman with Leonard Leo.
Right.
Michael Mukasey, he's George W. Bush's attorney general.
Right.
Peter Wallison, who was a big inside operator, was Reagan's White House counsel. And they all signed the brief that said the president's tariff proclamations bypass the constitutional framework that lends legitimacy and predictability to American lawmaking. And that was just the beginning. And Trump knows that they are behind this. And so the breaking of ranks with potentially these really lethal adversaries is just beginning. And
well, explain why they're so lethal. Explain why they're so lethal.
Because they're lethal because they're a guild, and they operate as a guild. They all know each other. They have a powerful organization, the Federalist Society. They're at the heart of the conservative movement. They're responsible for all of the key appointments to the Supreme Court, who are conservatives, and to the conservatives to the federal judiciary up and down the line. They're responsible for all of the decisions and rulings and have written them from Dobbs to Bruin to whatever, all of them. And they're smart. These are not, this is not a bunch of political, they're smart political consultants. These guys are not political consultants. These people are extremely intellectually capable, learned. They know what the law is, and they have broken ranks with him. And furthermore, it's not simply on trade. That's simply on one of the fronts. If you look at a number of the key lawsuits that have been filed against Trump by major institutions that he has attacked of civil society,
like the university,
that the key conservative leading legal lights are the co-counsels behind them. So there's the Harvard case, and who are the co-counsels? William Burke, who is on the board of directors of the Fox Corporation. He was deputy White House counsel to W. And guess what? He had been the ethics advisor to the Trump Organization. Now, there's an oxymoronic position. But he was, and he decided to represent Harvard, well knowing what the retribution would be. And he was, needless to say, immediately fired. And Trump announced, after having employed him, that he's a very bad lawyer. Robert Furr, who was the special counsel who investigated Joe Biden's mishandling of archives and didn't charge him. It was critical of Biden for his forgetfulness. He's a co-counsel for Harvard with Burke. And his whole career is, a classic Federalist Society type attorney career up the ladder.
So there's just so much retribution that Trump can enact against these guys. I mean, one thing to go about Congress and the House of Representatives, but these are people of independent power, independent places in the world, right? I mean, what can Trump do to them? He can yell at them, he can scream at them, but he doesn't have the power to fire them in quite the way, or get rid of them in quite the way he might want to threaten, members of the House, right?
Well, it's more than that. It's and there are a number of lessons. He is potentially in very troubled waters here, because as he attacks these people, these are people who are very much of the right. So let's take the counsel for Wilmer Hale law firm that defended it against Trump's executive order, which wanted to subject it to coercion like the other law firms. And who did they hire? Who was willing to do it? Paul Clement. I've met Paul Clement. He was W's Solicitor General, and nobody probably has argued more cases before the Supreme Court than Paul Clement, and has close personal relations with those justices. So, as you know, this is getting very intimate here, and he's very tough on his filing on behalf of Wilmer was very tough against Trump and cited the Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's getting even more personal. So, and this is, we're very deep into Washington now.
Yeah. Which you know very, very well.
So,
yeah.
There's a fellow named Ed Whalen. People may
I've heard of him, but go ahead.
He holds the Antonin Scalia Chair in Constitutional Studies at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. It's a conservative think tank in Washington. A lot of it devoted to religious and legal studies. And Whalen was very briefly involved during the Kavanaugh hearing on Kavanaugh's side, acting Christy Blasey Ford. And he is a very good friend and a surrogate for Leonard Leo. These people are very close. So Trump, let's just back up. Let's go back to the Stormy Daniels trial for a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. How does this fit in? How does it? Now we're really talking. He wants to ban his critical race theory and intersection, but there's an intersection here. So the intersection is who was sitting next to Trump in the trial in which he paid hush money to Stormy Daniels to shut up during the 2016 election about their illicit affair, for which he gave her money too. And sitting next to him is his lawyer, Emil Bove.
Emil Bove, correct.
Emil Bove. And he's his personal attorney. And
now about
him deputy attorney general to act as his stooge in the Justice Department. And now he's appointed him to be a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, which is, Jersey and Pennsylvania. And Ed Whalen weighs in, and he trashes him and says that his appointment should be rejected, that he's just a henchman, that he's a bully, and that he was involved in the Eric Adams case, extorting Eric Adams to get and ending his prosecution of corruption in order to get his involvement in Trump's immigration policies and ICE roundups.
Right.
So Whalen, really sticks in the stiletto here.
Yes.
He says that Trump might be putting him on the federal bench to position him well for the next Supreme Court vacancy. A rosier possibility is that Bove is tired of being Stephen Miller's errand boy.
So this isn't just the rats jumping from the ship. This is the ship cracking up. This is the ship springing leaks. This is the ship looking like, the pirates have now gone on the other side. What should we look for in the near future? Do you have any idea about on this story?
Well, I think there's some relationship here to the breaking of ranks of the Federalist Society people, which is quite real. And the fact that a number of the clients of law firms that have given in to Trump have left those law firms because they don't believe they can faithfully represent them because they're under Trump's thumb. And those clients are run by big Republicans, among others. So there's a vast breakup going on here, and it stretches to the Elon Musk breakup And in the case of this Leonard Leo fissure, it's more than a fracturing. It's not just political, it's become personal because Trump always makes it personal.
Yeah.
And Trump has revealed his true view of the law. And there is a distinction. People, some people are now arguing, well, don't feel so sorry for Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society, look what they've done, and so on. And, well, the history is the history, as we know. Yeah. And they have done, they have been responsible for what they've been responsible for. But they are, particularly in these cases where they're acting as co-counsels and filing these amicus briefs, standing up for the Constitution and the law. And they are, whatever you want to say about them. And Trump, on the other hand, reveals himself, as he does every day, as not as his view of the law, which is something to trample under in order to dominate. He's not interested in checks and balances. He's not interested in the Constitution. He's not interested in governing. He's interested in ruling, and contrary to the entire basis of the Constitution. And as I say at the end of this Guardian piece, which I hope people read, Trump is returning in his attack on the whole group of Federalist Society people to his first principle, as he was taught in the beginning by his mob lawyer, Roy Cohn, who said, "Don't tell me what the law is. Tell me who the judge is."
Famous
mafia. This is a mafia boss's idea.
This is John Gotti government. As you say, a good thing to remember that he's not interested in governing, he's interested in ruling. But with saying that, then maybe we should wrap it up for now with the Court of History, the highest court of all, as we know. And see you next time. Thanks, Sid. We'll hope everyone reads your column, and we'll move on to next time.
Thanks, Sean.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.